Imagine standing on a boat in the freezing English Channel. It's 3 a.m., you're soaking wet, you're seasick, you're 19 years old, and in 2 hours, you're going to sprint across an open beach into machine gun fire with no cover, no guarantees, and a 50-50 chance of dying before breakfast. June the 6th, 1944, the largest seaborne invasion in human history. Over 156,000 men, 6,000 ships, and 13,000 aircraft, all aimed at one target: Hitler's so-called impenetrable Atlantic Wall. This is D-Day, and almost nothing went according to plan. Section 1. Why Normandy? By the spring of 1944, Adolf Hitler controlled almost all of Western Europe. France had been occupied for 4 years. The Nazi war machine had built a network of bunkers, mines, barbed wire, and artillery batteries stretching from Norway to Spain. Over 2,400 miles of coastal defense. They called it the Atlantic Wall, and Hitler put one man in charge of making it unbreakable: Field Marshal Erwin Rommel, the Desert Fox. Rommel ordered millions of mines buried in the sand, steel obstacles designed to rip boats apart, machine gun nests angled to create overlapping fields of fire. He turned the beaches of France into a kill zone. But here's the thing nobody expected. The Allies weren't planning to attack where Rommel thought they would. Hitler was convinced the invasion would come at Pas de Calais, the shortest crossing point from England to France. Only 21 miles of open water. It was the obvious choice. So the Allies made sure Hitler kept believing that. They launched one of the most elaborate deception operations in military history, codenamed Operation Bodyguard. Fake armies, fake radio traffic, inflatable tanks. They even used a body double of General Montgomery to make the Germans think the real invasion force was stationed near Calais. The real target? 5 beaches along a 50-mile stretch of Normandy coastline. Codenames: Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juno, Sword. Section 2, the night before airborne chaos. The invasion didn't start on the beaches. It started in the sky. Just after midnight on June 6th, over 24,000 airborne troops jumped into the darkness behind enemy lines. Their mission: seize bridges, destroy artillery, and cause as much chaos as possible before the beach landings began. It was a disaster, at first. High winds and anti-aircraft fire scattered the paratroopers across miles of countryside. Men landed in flooded fields and drowned under the weight of their equipment. Some landed directly on top of German positions. Units that were supposed to be 700 men strong could only find 30. One paratrooper from the 82nd Airborne, Private John Steele, got his parachute caught on the steeple of the church in Sainte-Mère-Église. He hung there for 2 hours, playing dead, while a battle raged in the streets below him. The church bell was ringing so close to his head that he was temporarily deafened. He survived, but dozens of his fellow paratroopers were shot before they even touched the ground. Section 3, the beaches, hell on earth. At 6:30 a.m. the ramps dropped. Thousands of Allied soldiers surged forward into the surf. Americans at Utah and Omaha, British at Golden Sword, Canadians at Juno. At Utah Beach, something lucky happened. Strong currents pushed the landing craft almost 2 kilometers south of the intended target, into a less defended stretch of sand. Brigadier General Theodore Roosevelt Jr., yes, the president's son, was the first senior officer ashore. He looked around, made a decision on the spot, and famously said, "We'll start the war from right here." Utah was taken with relatively light casualties. Omaha was a slaughterhouse. The pre-landing bombardment, meant to destroy the German defenses, almost completely missed. The bombers released too late. The naval shells fell inland. When the ramps dropped at Omaha, the German bunkers were fully intact and waiting. Men were cut down in the water before they took a single step on sand. Entire companies lost 90% of their soldiers in the first hour. The tide came in red, bodies floated in the surf. Equipment sank, officers were dead, radios were destroyed. For nearly 4 hours, the outcome of Omaha Beach was in genuine doubt. Commanders offshore considered pulling out entirely. So what changed? What turned a massacre into a breakthrough? Small groups of soldiers, sergeants, lieutenants, sometimes just privates, stopped waiting for orders. They grabbed whoever was nearby and started moving, blowing holes in barbed wire, climbing the bluffs under fire, fighting bunker by bunker, trench by trench. One Army Ranger colonel reportedly told his pinned-down men, "There are only two kinds of people on this beach, those who are dead and those who are about to die." Now let's get off this beach. By nightfall, Omaha was taken, but at a cost. Over 2,000 Americans killed or wounded on that single beach. Section 4, the other beaches and the aftermath. On the British and Canadian beaches, Gold, Juno and Sword, the fighting was fierce but the advance was faster. At Juno, Canadian troops faced some of the heaviest resistance of the day, with 50% casualties in the first wave. But by afternoon, they'd pushed further inland than any other Allied force. At Sword Beach, the British pushed toward the city of Caen, a key objective. They wouldn't actually capture it for another 6 weeks. The campaign would be far longer and bloodier than anyone planned. But by the end of June 6, 1944, the Allies had landed 156,000 troops on French soil. They held all 5 beaches. The Atlantic Wall, Hitler's Fortress Europe, had been cracked open. What followed was nearly 3 months of brutal fighting across the hedgerows of Normandy, a landscape so dense, so tangled, that every field became a fortress. The Battle of Normandy didn't end on D-Day, it raged until late August 1944. The breaking point came at the Battle of the Falaise Pocket, where Allied forces trapped and destroyed an entire German army. Over 50,000 Germans surrendered, tens of thousands more were killed. On August 25th, Paris was liberated. The Nazi grip on Western Europe was broken. D-Day cost the Allies over 10,000 casualties in a single day. Roughly 4,400 confirmed dead. Some of them were teenagers who had never left their hometowns before boarding those ships. They stormed into machine gun fire so that the rest of the world wouldn't have to. If stories like this remind you why history matters, then subscribe. I break down the biggest moments in human history every single week.